The active RAW service is developed as a RESTful web service and can be invoked over any HTTP client. To invoke the generate web forms function, a developer will need to send a RDF ontology file to the endpoint of an active RAW service. For demo purpose, we have developed a web page that allows user to send an RDF file over the browser to our developed active RAW service. We post the SSM ontology into the text field. So here is the SSM ontology. So we copy it and post and submit the content to the active RAW service by clicking on extract class. So in the background, an HTTP post with the SSM ontology as payload is sent to the active RAW service endpoint, and the active RAW generate web forms method generates a RAW form model based on the input ontology according to the algorithm described in our paper. After creating the web form model and persisting it in the backend triple store, the active RAW service returns the URI to the newly created RAW new form model. For purpose of the model demo, we submit a new HTTP GET request with the previously returned URI over a JavaScript developed for the demo page and display the resulting HTML plus RDFA annotations created by the active RAW service in the tab XHTML plus RDFA. Because the SSM ontology is fairly large, it has 39 classes. The RAW JavaScript library in the front end does not display the entire RAW web form. See here we have 39 classes listed in this list box. By split the web form based on its classes, it displays a list box where the user can select which class instance she wants to create. For this demo, we want to create an instance of the survival range class. So we select the range class and we click on create form. The resulting web form includes an update form field where the user can retrieve existing instance of the select class for pre-filling the form. The class instance can be looked up in the local active RAW service repository via a pop-up window. So we'll type in survival range here. Also, not only queries the local triple store for class instance, we also reference an external link data graph via its URI. So here we have this URI and we search the potential list based on it. Here we go, we got the result. Okay. The RAW JavaScript library will retrieve the data from the referenced URI and pre-fill the form fields with the object values of matching object relations in the reference graph. The survival class in SSM does not have any data properties, and as such we do not have any form controls for data property. In fact, the SSM ontology does not include any data properties, but we have two distinct types of form controls for object properties, one for single chain object property and one for multi-chain object properties that has survival property, and its property of are a single chain properties, meaning the range class has no further properties, whereas the in condition Object property is a multi-chain property where the range class condition has exactly one object property is property of. For single-chain properties, the user can either prefill the text box with relation values from an existing survival range instance class by clicking on Adding Class, or can create a new object related by clicking on New. When clicking on New, the text box becomes active and the user can either type in URI or just plain text, which will be prefixed with a URI. So we type in plain text here, which is or we can click on add existing. An HTTP request is issued with the URI of the selected property range. In this case, the range has survival property. The service returns a ranked list of survival property as displayed here, which are displayed in a separate pop-up window. The user can select a class instance which results in prefill of the has survival property text box. So basically we select one URL and we click on OK and For multi-chain properties, the user can either prefill the field of the object property in the case is property of with an existing class instance of feature of interest, in a similar way as we done with the single chain property by selecting a class instance in the pop-up window, like by clicking on Add Existing. Or the user can click on the condition hyperlink class hyperlink to transparently create a new class instance of type condition with a new as property of relation by typing in a URL or label as with the previous text box. So typing something here. An additional feature of the web form in a raw web form to comply with the open world assumption of the RDF as semantics is the possibility to add multiple relations of the same class instance with the plus button as long as the property of the class, in this case the survival range class, are not functional. So here we click on plus button. So we have another instance of in condition class. We can also collapse and as such delete previously added non-functional relations by clicking on the minus button. Yeah. When the user finished filling in the form field, she can click on submit. Okay. Submit. The raw JavaScript library passed. The Java library passed the DOM tree, create and RDF graph and updates the RDF graph with the user input and submit the RDF payload to the active raw service, which returns a URI to the newly created RDF graph persisted in the repository. For demo purpose, we have included a button on the web form that can be used to retrieve the input data of the submitted web form as RDF. So in our case, it is the instance state of the survival range class. Thanks for watching.